Wow. What a finish. Welcome to the early wedge. The US Open is, finishing up at the moment, but for all intents and purposes, Rick, it's done.
It's
What
over.
a punctuation by JJ Spaun.
Oh, that was a day. Legitimately did not know who was going to win the golf tournament for the vast majority of it. Everyone going backwards. The final group punting it away. Potentially a rules controversy. And then, the exclamation point put on by a first-time major winner. Just, oh my God, everything.
JJ Spaun, I mean, he was putting well the entire tournament. And I actually thought today, when things weren't really going his way early, Rick, I was like, all right, well, now it's going to unravel for JJ Spaun. A golfer I very much respect. I respect his game. I didn't think he was going to win, of course, but the guy who's just been completely dialed in this entire tournament, and for him to drain, what was it, 64, 65-foot putt, honestly, I know it was the longest putt of the tournament, but it almost seemed like par for the course, no pun intended. Like, this guy's just draining everything on the greens.
Well, his ability to fairway and green, fairway and green, fairway and green, that was super valuable this week, especially on Sunday. And he was about as unlucky as you could possibly imagine early in the round.
Mm-hmm.
And for him to just stay head down, not try to force the issue. I was on HQ at one point during the day, and it was like, does JJ Spaun have to press now? It's like, I hope not, because that's not really what he does. And he didn't, right? It's just like he didn't try to take on more than he could chew. He knew it was a 72-hole tournament. We were going to have to add him up at the end. I thought that he not only obviously played well, but really stuck to his game and stuck to the strategy.
So I hate to do this right off the bat, but I do feel like, first of all, today seemed like it was like a two-part play, right? We had before the storm, if you will, before the rain and after the rain. And before we get to the Sam Burns situation on 15, like, did it seem like the course was like, forget about that particular situation. Did it seem like the course was playing super unfair just because of the standing water that was everywhere? I mean, that was sort of my perception before we even get to the Sam Burns moment, but maybe I'm just overstating it. That happens all the time.
Well, I don't think it's unfair, as long as, there are rules for that, right? There are rules for when your ball is behind a sprinkler head, and we saw guys take that relief. Adam Scott took that relief and dropped his ball on the green. We saw guys take relief from cart paths, or I think Adam Scott also had, like, his ball was in like standing water in a muddy spot. Like, there's rules for that. I guess the problem with what happened with Sam Burns on 15 is that by letter of the law, that rule was probably adjudicated properly. It might just be a bad rule. So his ball is in like a pool of water. I mean, it is very, very wet, but the rule is where your feet are, and his feet, apparently, I couldn't tell, but apparently his feet were not bringing up enough water to warrant relief, despite his ball being in a lake. So stinks. Really bad time for that to happen. I don't know if it's a bad rule or if the rule was misapplied, but two different rules officials gave the same ruling.
Yeah. So, have a take here. What would you, if you were a rule official, what would you have done?
I actually think, first off, you should call a third rules official. You can't have, I guess the first two voted in the same direction.
Right.
Listen, I think that common sense has to prevail at some point. Now, I don't know if you want to be the rules official that kind of takes one off the beaten path and uses common sense on the 69th hole of a major championship. So I honestly, if I was a rules official, I probably would have done the same exact thing and done the absolute, like, this is the technicality of the rule. And I know it sucks and I know it's a crappy rule, but like, I have to. I can't just pick and choose when to change this.
I will concede it's a tough spot for a rules official. I feel kind of burned, pun intended, because I had Sam Burns and I was, like, at that point, it was certainly up for grabs among 4 or 5 golfers, and it was over right there. It was pretty much over on that approach coming out of the water, and then it just kind of went downhill for Sam Burns there. But let's turn the page. Maybe we'll circle back. Maybe we'll get Josh's take on this casual Watergate issue. But JJ Spaun, you mentioned it. Early in the round, he was it's Oakmont, so it's not like he was terrible, but he certainly wasn't good. And to your point, though, there was some bad luck. Like when he hit the pin, I'm trying to remember what hole that was, and you see the look on his face as it just speeds back, off the green into the fairway. Like you thought he was going to take himself out of it. The fact that he was able to persevere and even get into a position to win this tournament is actually pretty amazing.
Yeah, that was number 2. He hits a great wedge in there that looks like it's going to kind of one hop in front of the pin, go behind the pin, and then, spin back to some decent, might have been really close, might have been 10 feet, something like that. Hits the stick and rolls back off the false front, which rolls off the green like 50 yards. That's not an exaggeration. It goes like 50 yards off the green. He made 5 straight 5s to start the day. That's not good. But was able to turn the tides. I think the weather delay really helped just kind of settle him back in and recalibrate a little bit, because I think his world was spinning pretty quickly on the front 9 there.
Let's talk about some of the other golfers that were in contention before JJ Spaun just really kind of took it away. Robert McIntyre, a guy that, if memory serves, disappointed a lot of people last week, comes in, and it looks like there's a point where, because I'm looking at the odds the whole time. I'm trying to live bet out of my Sam Burns position to some degree. I had a little something on JJ Spaun, still lost money ultimately. But Robert McIntyre was, from an odds perspective, certainly the leader in the clubhouse in more ways than one. Did you think Robert McIntyre had it, and just your comments on his game throughout?
Yeah, I did. I thought, I don't know if he was actually the favorite when JJ Spaun was playing 16, but I thought that he was the favorite just because Spaun has to play 16. He has to play 18. 17 is an opportunity, but it's not a given birdie. So I thought there was a really good chance that Robert McIntyre was at the very least going to get himself into a playoff, if not win this outright, especially because, everyone all over the golf course was vomiting all over themselves. But yeah, I thought this was a very resilient round and a resilient week from Robert McIntyre. He goes 69, 68 on the weekend, which is incredible. I haven't looked yet, but that's probably the best that anybody did on the weekend at Oakmont. And he talks a lot afterwards about having a little bit of a different state of mind, just being a little bit more patient, the P word that everybody's been talking about all week long. I think that certainly helped him. And yeah, this is just a great finish. I thought he was at least going to be in a playoff. The fact that he lost by 2 shots was pretty shocking to me.
Yeah, it's super shocking. And for the record, the pace on that putt from Spaun, well, like if it didn't hit the hole, like we're talking about, you tell me, but it looked like maybe 3 feet coming back if it skips by the hole. Like the pace seemed perfect to me.
It was moving. It was,
okay, fair enough.
It was moving. No, I think I cannot imagine how much JJ Spaun would have paid for Victor Hovland to putt that first, and he got it for free. Yeah. You show these guys the line and the speed, especially with how good of a putter that JJ Spaun is, and I thought he was going to give it a good run. I didn't think he was going to make it, but my God, it was pretty good.
You might be right. Upon further review, maybe it's 4 or 5 feet past. But
he would have made the comebacker either way.
He was making them all tournament long.
Yeah.
A couple of the other notables that were certainly in the conversation. We heard the telecast and Twitter talking about John Rahm posting 4 under, leader in the clubhouse. 4 over, and it looked like for a moment like there could be some fallback pretty much from everybody. Then Scheffler's making a run at it. Honestly, if Scheffler had made some putts, there were some good putts, some bad putts from him, but if he had just made a handful of those, all of a sudden he's probably sitting at 2 over or 1 over, and you never know what's going to happen there. Your commentary on either Scheffler or Rahm, what you thought about their rounds?
Scheffler was just missed everything, didn't make the putts really when he had to, and finished T7 at a major championship, which is now going to end up being tied with Sam Burns, which is crazy to think before the day started.
Crazy.
John Rahm was awesome and absolutely the beneficiary of the storm. He finished, and then things got bad, right? And everyone just sucked right back to him and improves his finishing position. But for him to birdie 16, 17, and 18 is nuts. This is now, I believe, 4 straight majors that Rahm has finished inside the top 15. he is back to contending at these and putting together really high-end finishes, even without what I thought was really good timing. I mean, it's going to be easily a top 12 or top 15 finish for him, but Rahm should be taking a lot away from this week again.
Yeah, Rahm was one of a handful of guys that gained across every category. Xander, another one of those guys that gained across every category, finishes T12. How do you assess Xander Schauffele? In other words, do we think Xander is maybe inching back to the Xander of last year, for example?
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, listen, as long as he's ever been off the tee, he's a little less accurate than I would like for him. He actually was 3 under at one point on the day before giving 2 of them back late, but he was also on the verge of putting together another top 10 finish at a major championship and ends up being a T12. Like, that's what Xander does. And I'm a firm believer that we are not going to go the rest of this year without Xander getting back into the winner's circle once, if not twice. So I'm a pretty big believer in the state of his game, and I have no reason to think anything different after what I saw from him this week, quite frankly.
A couple more players to talk about, a couple more notes to talk about as we close shop on the U.S. Open at Oakmont. And if you all have any questions in the chat, let us know. But real quick, before we do any of that, let's hear a message from our partners.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
We're back on the Early Wedge, brought to you by BetMGM, the sports book born in Vegas, Japan. In the chat, he says Grillo had a nice little tournament. I actually didn't even see how his tournament ended today. Doesn't look like he's anywhere in the top 15 as I look at some of the golf metrics that I'm looking at here. But Rick, anybody else jump out to you? You know, a guy like Tyrrell Hatton wasn't talked about much coming into this tournament. If to the extent live guys were talked about, it certainly wasn't him. Cameron Young continues on his path, looking to be like the Cameron Young that we knew and loved from a couple of years ago, maybe a few years ago at this point. Talk to me about any of those guys, Cameron Young, Tyrrell Hatton, in terms of their staying power.
Yeah, I mean, first off, let me just, Ben Griffin again, right? So Ben Griffin,
yeah,
T8 at the PGA Championship, T10 at the US Open, and that was with that horrendous finish that he had yesterday, which was like 5 over in his last 4 holes or something like that. So,
yeah.
So that's always a good one. Hatton is so interesting because he's had some better major championship finishes as of late. I think that his game suits well. His game suits well for a major championship. I think sometimes, and I'm not breaking any news here, that he can like blow a top and play himself out of it. I thought there was a play late, and I guess he's playing for first. It doesn't really matter, but there was a couple of plays late where I was like, why is he trying to pull this shot off? Dude, he should have done. There was a moment, God, it must have been on 17, I believe, where he should have just played it into the bunker, which is what Carlos Ortiz did out of a really thick, rough lie. Play it into the bunker and have a better chance of getting up and down from there instead of trying to go for the green, because you are never going to hold the green. You're never going to hit the green. It's an impossible shot. He tried to pull it off, and he did exactly what everybody thought. He put himself in an even worse position, ends up kind of even making a bigger mess out of that. So, yeah, I think there was a couple of questionable decisions, but I'd be, quite happy with the way that he played for the week.
All right. Josh, I do kind of want to get you in here as well when you get a chance, because I feel like we need to just put at least a period on the casual Watergate situation. I do want your take on all of that with respect to Sam Burns. The one thing I will say is, as a guy who held a Sam Burns ticket, I don't feel like I felt like I was cheated in the moment, but the way JJ Spaun just came out and grabbed that tournament, like I'm kind of like, maybe it wouldn't have mattered. But Josh, your take on all of that?
Oh, it was kind of the perfect moment of what I was frustrated with, basically the entirety of the post rain delay portion of today, which is, and it went away a little bit because of how strong Spaun was to finish. There's just nothing super enticing for me about a bunch of guys holding on and kind of being put in a position where holding on is all that you can do. because the course probably, it was at least borderline, whether or not they should have played. But I think it's probably one of those things. Kyle Porter actually put up a second video. If you guys, I'm sure everybody on the planet has seen Kyle's video of him, and I actually texted him asking him if we could throw it up on the screen. He said absolutely. So
love it.
he went and stood around basically right after Burns hit the shot. But it's important because he also went back over there because the rule is about where your feet are, not where the ball is. And it seems like where Burns's feet was a little less soppy. But yeah, it's just super unfortunate. And it is, I had been thinking for the last couple hours at that point, like, is this really how we want a major championship to end? But with Spaun doing what he did, I'm fine with that being the way it closes out.
Rick, go ahead. Rick, I was just going to say that's my exact take. Like, it just seemed, I know there's rules officials and all this, but like, and you get relief and all that, but like, it just seemed totally like when they came back, it was like they were playing on a pool. It was just, it seemed unfair.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, listen, I think that it's weird. If this happened at the Open, we'd be like, "Oh, this is sick. I love it. Yeah, like screw these guys. This is like beat them up with whatever." But because it's the U.S. Open, I'm upset by it or something like that. You know what I mean? I don't know. It was definitely the course. Okay, here's where I think the biggest indictment about the course conditions is. After a rain delay, and it is coming down again.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like on hole 11 or 12. Scotty Scheffler calls a rules official to see if they are going to be blowing the horn soon so that he doesn't have to hit the shot. So Scotty Scheffler, the number one player in the world, has deemed the course unplayable, and clearly they are going to be blowing the horn shortly. So call a rules official, and well, spoiler alert, they never blew the horn after that. So they about another hour or hour plus in what Scotty Scheffler had considered probably unplayable conditions.
Yeah. I mean, Josh, I feel like that's the feeling, whether it occurs to them or not, or occurred to them or not in the moment. It felt like, yeah, you're just hanging on. Like, you're not going to be able to do the things you were able to do before the rain delay.
And I can't, and this is, I don't have any proof of this other than this is the USGA's reputation, but it feels like, kind of to Rick's point about the Open, like the RNA doesn't go around necessarily flaunting how difficult their championship is. They just kind of, they have the courses, and then if Mother Nature does its thing, then we have this different type of carnage. I have a hard time shaking the feeling of, in the back room, they're like, you know what, this is perfect. Now we get carnage on top of how difficult Oakmont is. That could be totally ridiculous, but it wouldn't stun me if they're like, you know what, if we can get away with it at all, we should do it.
Also, you run into obviously going to a Monday finish is a total disaster.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're already up against it. That definitely comes into play on whether the golf course, like whether they're out there or not. And it shouldn't, because that's not how competition at the highest level should work, but that's the truth.
Sure. Yeah.
No, that's 100%. That's 100% right. All right. So we don't have to go long here. I guess, when we think about 2025, the US Open in 2025 in Oakmont, what are a couple of takeaways here? Well, what are people of course are going to remember JJ Spaun. They're going to remember his putt on 18, which he didn't really have to make necessarily, and just that electric moment. But Rick, I'm going to start with you. What's a couple of highlights that beyond just JJ Spaun winning here?
No, it'll all be about the golf course. The course oftentimes is the most memorable part of this. And when we look back in 5 years, it'd be like, dude, remember that Sunday at Oakmont where it was just like absolute chaos and it was pouring and all that stuff. And one guy finished under par. That will be what is remembered the most. I think outside of that, I don't know, man. I mean, it won't end up being a big deal. It'll be overshadowed, but Adam Scott and Sam Burns shooting 78, 79 for the final group is disgustingly bad.
Yeah.
And they're probably off the hook because they're going to be able to blame the golf course and all that fun stuff. But man, those are two pretty bad spots for those guys.
Josh, what's your kind of a couple of takeaways here?
I do think the Burns ruling will be a part of how this tournament is remembered in the same way that Bobby Mack's Scottish Open victory. Part of how we remember that is the ruling he got in the fescue. What hole is that? 16 or something, where there was a sprinkler,
the hidden sprinkler head.
Yeah, like in the fescue. Certainly not saying. By the way, Jeff Stenberg is now sporting my Twitter profile.
I love that.
And so I do think that's probably part of it. Of course, he completely. I mean, it's certainly on Burns to like not be able to regain whatsoever. I mean, he hadn't quite imploded at that point, but showed like no interest in kind of rewriting the ship after that. So certainly not suggesting that Sam Burns would have absolutely won this golf tournament if he got the relief there. But it probably would have been a little bit more interesting on that front. But yeah, I think the weather will play a big part in it. And I think similar to the shot that Colin Morikawa hit on 16 at TPC Harding Park in 2020. I think the first shot we'll see from this week over and over again is the tee shot on 17. Yeah. Which ironically, I think about as many people were actually there on the hole as Colin Morikawa's shot in the middle of COVID, just because of the rain. And there was basically nobody there to see that one either in person, which I thought was a little bit amusing.
Drivable par fours on 16, 17, or 18, or I guess like 16 or 17 are just the best.
And ones that are challenging without too many, like if you don't hit a perfect shot, your tournament's over, right? Like it wouldn't be as fun if there was water surrounding the drivable par four, because if there's any chance of you winning the tournament without making eagle or something, like you're just gonna lay up, you're gonna hit a safe shot.
You have to give them a reason to go for it,
right? And if JJ Spaun doesn't hit a perfect shot, he ends up where Victor Hovland was, and Victor hit another sick pitch on that hole for the second time this weekend. So a risk reward, but not one that's like you either ascend the mountaintop or fall off a cliff kind of thing is really effective.
Yeah, totally agree. Let's close with this question, because we went into this tournament thinking, all right, this is Oakmont. The best golfers are going to separate themselves. It's going to be one of Scotty or Bryson or Rahm. And obviously, like, it's golf. There's variance, there's room for outliers. But, you know, JJ Spaun, Robert McIntyre, Victor Hovland, Cameron Young, Tyrrell Hatton, Carlos Ortiz. That rounds out your top six. And then we do get to Rahm and Scheffler, Burns, or I guess Burns might have fallen. No, then it's Burns. What does this tell us about the super tough courses and the idea that, okay, now we can only consider maybe the top 10 on the odds board? Rick, I feel like, are we breaking the mold, or was this just an outlier tournament?
Well, Brooks Koepka, Xander Schauffele, Scotty Scheffler, and John Rahm all finished inside the top 12, which is good for that side of things. Victor Hovland finished third. That's good for that side of things. Then you have really, really high-end talent players like Cam Young, Tyrrell Hatton, Sam Burns. You've got like the hottest player in the world, not named Scotty Scheffler, Ben Griffin. So really, this is a pretty stacked top 12. The fact that JJ Spaun in his one previous victory ends up winning it, and that Robert McIntyre finishing second with his 2 career victories. Yes, that's probably not, the names that people would have suspected were going to win this, but all in all, it shook out in a pretty, I mean, I didn't even mention Russell Henley, who's like apparently a top 10 player in the world. He finished T10. So yeah, it's a pretty stout leaderboard.
No, you're right. Scheffler, you mentioned Rahm and Victor, of course, Xander and Brooks up there as well. Josh, your thoughts? Because again, nobody was on JJ Spaun for this tournament at all.
Yeah, I think the leaderboard, it'll be one of those. It's kind of the full leaderboard version of a guy who finishes 9th, and we'll look back at his Wikipedia page and there's a yellow square there, and it'll just kind of be like, oh, it's a really solid finish there. When it probably wasn't that solid. I mean, Rory finished T19 this week. I'm not sure any of us really feel like it was a T19 week from Rory.
Right.
And so as a result, like, John Rahm hit his last shot, 4 hours ago at this point. So I think from that perspective, it didn't feel like it quite had the juice coming down the stretch, just because those guys had either finished or had kind of played themselves the opposite direction. But yeah, I think ultimately, this is just it's just different from Scotty Scheffler and Bryson DeChambeau and Rory McIlroy, which is kind of what major championship golf has been since the beginning of 2024, which is fine, which is different. And that's what the US Open does, is that even when the best players aren't totally on, they're probably not going to kind of trip their way into really having a chance to win the golf tournament. Which is probably what you want for the US Open.
Yeah, Joseph Boza putting kind of a punctuation on just the Scotty situation. He didn't have much. It looked like he didn't have much, and still a top 10 finish, T8 finish is pretty incredible. We got a signature event next week. Any takeaways from this week in terms of what you're looking at ahead of, obviously completely different situation at the Travelers signature event?
Well, that for sure. Short golf course where accuracy reigns supreme. But I don't always feel this way. I'm like, oh, I usually don't think there's going to be a post major hangover. Those guys got their butts kicked this
totally.
Yeah, and they looked exhausted.
Yes.
Like, give me I want all the guys who played like pretty good for 2 days and missed the cut. They're now my guys for next week.
I felt like, Josh, everybody was walking around like they had just played like 4 football games in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a physical test this week. You're just in the trenches for 4 straight days.
Yeah. That's it, Rick. That's really an interesting note. As everybody knows who watches the Early Wedge, we got our DFS show tomorrow at 7:00. It'll be me, Rick, and Mike. We've got our betting show at 7. We've got our live chat on Wednesday afternoon, and then we've got our live show on Sunday. Rick, I feel like that's going to be a theme outside of the obvious stuff in terms of what you need to be successful at the Travelers. I feel like one of the themes going into next week is who played last week and who was really kind of grinding in rounds 3 and round 4, because good luck getting reset for Thursday.
It's going to be hard. Yeah, it's going to be really hard. I'm excited.
Feels like your first click should be Sepp Straka next week.
Dude, yes. Sepp Straka's going to win the Travelers.
Yeah.
Oh, the odds out yet? That's such a good call. I absolutely love that might end up being. I feel like, listen, I thought Sam Burns was going to win it. I'm feeling, even at the break, I was still pretty confident, and then everything just unraveled. But I got to give JJ Spaun some credit, because when we did our Thursday recap show, I, among others, said I like JJ Spaun's game. I have respect for him. Losing in the playoff at the Players to Rory, he's been good this entire season. I did not think he was going to hold up, and it looked like he wasn't going to hold up, which makes his story that much more impressive, because what he did through the first 5 or 6 holes, it looked like he had already taken himself out of it, and then boom, he wins the tournament. Really incredible stuff. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like the whole, while he was there and then lost thing gets overplayed. Well, he was there at the Players and got the experience and says he's way more confident. That kind of thing in general, I think, can be overplayed. But it felt that way, especially after the rain delay. It felt like he had actually, there was some real truth to that, and there was nothing fluky about how he finished out. It was sick. I mean, he hadn't played that hole well, 18. That is, he hadn't played it well since Thursday, a couple bogeys, and just stepped up and striped one. It was sick.
Well, I do want to cap this off, Rick, by saying that the odds for the Travelers are out at some sports books, and Sepp Straka is 30-1, which isn't super enticing considering the field, but still 30-1. It's something.
He's already won a signature event this year.
Yeah, he certainly has. By the way, Scotty Scheffler going off at plus 275. We'll talk about all of that tomorrow on the DFS show and, of course, the betting show and the live chat. I think that'll do it, gentlemen. Wanted to touch on casual Watergate, wanted to touch on really all the guys we watched today specifically, and I think we did a good job doing that. Thank you, everybody, for being in the chat. Joseph Boza, Joseph Hoover, Jeff Stenberg in here, among so many others. Virtual, let's see. There's a lot of you that are more vocal than others. Justin Wyatt is in here. Thanks for being here. Dodgers fan 330. Appreciate everybody being in here. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. So much content from the Early Wedge coming at you every single week, including this week for the Travelers. On behalf of Josh, on behalf of Rick, my name is Nejad. This is the Early Wedge. See you tomorrow, folks.